this is a continuation of the previous post where I spoke about the letter informing the staff and faculty of Evergreen of the departure and the settlement with Weinstein and his wife. And then I kind of pivoted into going through the day of absence, day of presence, and talking about how it might be more discriminatory than the college wanted to let on. In their letter, they said it wasn't discriminatory whatsoever. And I take issue with that. And then one of my wonderful YouTube commenters sent me the schedule for the day of absence proceedings that involved the white or the majority students. And I want to read that, but before I read that, I've been going through the faculty emails through all these FOIA, FOIA, Freedom of Information Act emails, and I came across an email sent out by Emily Piper on Wednesday, May 31st, which is about a week after the protests. And it reads, "Dear Evergreen Marketing and Communications, respectfully, I have altered the communication sent by the college about the events of the last week, adding a few missing pieces. Thanks for your time, Emily Piper, Assistant Director of Student Activities." Extension, I'm not going to read that. But she goes through different aspects of the press release that the college sent out in the wake of the protests. And then she gets to the day of absence, day of presence. And I want to read her appendation or her edit about that. This year, some participants attended an off-campus workshop focused on anti-bias training from a majority culture or white perspective. Others attended an on-campus educational and social program designed to address issues from the perspective of people of color. On Day of Presence, all of the participants reunited on campus to share ideas and reflections about the exercise. And then her edit is, "Taking the legacy of innovation in our institution seriously, we are excited to try something new. The best way that we've found to support students, staff, and faculty of color in all their different experiences and backgrounds is to honor their experiences and respond to their requests for allyship and solidarity." The flipping of day of absence on and off was a suggestion made by members of the Day of Absence, Day of Presence working group that we talked about at length. We are thankful for the trust and thoughtfulness of the larger committee that allowed us to take that chance. And here's what I wanted to get to. By switching the Day of Absence programming, we are physically moving our bodies so that people of color can be centered for one day on campus. It is also important for us to note that in an attempt to center students and staff of color, the narrative has still returned to a centering of whiteness, even in our sending of this email. Right? So keep that in mind. It's also important for us to note that in an attempt to center students and staff of color, the narrative has still returned to a centering of whiteness. Now, let me read you the schedule for the white event. Seminar on article White Supremacy Culture. And the description reads, "Culture is powerful precisely because it is so present and at the same time so very difficult to name or identify. Based on the article White Supremacy Culture, written by Kenneth Jones and Tima Okun, this seminar will explore the ways that a list of characteristics of white supremacy culture show up in our organizations, schools, and workplaces." And then there's a potluck, and then there's an afternoon session. And one of the afternoon sessions is called Know Your Fascists by, let me let you guys fill in the blank on this one. Fascist isn't just a way to say meanie, but it is a set of racist and nationalist authoritarian ideologies that are often more subtle and dangerous than Klan/Nazi stereotypes. An overview of the history of fascist and white supremacist social movements in Europe and the United States, including the current U.S. alt-right and European far-right parties, how they use populist messages to win followers, and effective strategies and tactics by their opponents to expose and stop them. And then another afternoon session workshop is called Can White People Ever Be Woke? Woke. a state of enlightened understanding, particularly related to issues of race and social justice. Someone who is woke is aware of issues of injustice and inequality. Many people are experiencing a new call to activism and social justice. As white people become called toward anti-racism, it's important to consider whether or not white people can ever truly understand and how that limitation might affect their responsible allyship, as well as the importance of staying in a constant state of learning and unlearning. Sounds very dizzying. This workshop will explore the many ways white people interact with issues of race and racism and provide a continuum of self-awareness as it relates to doing less harm as a white activist. See how whiteness is not being centered at all in this. Another seminar. What's at stake? Collective liberation. White anti-racists are invited to deepen their work toward collective liberation by examining what's at stake for themselves in ending white supremacy. They are invited to examine what it means to sustain white anti-racist actions that work across identity differences within whiteness for long-haul racial justice movement building. I wonder how many trailers does that truck have? Using popular education and storytelling, expect physical movement and personal reflection. And then there's a game called Star Power, Experiencing Capitalism. Star Power is a fun introduction to class struggle, power, and politics. 18 to 35 players have a chance to progress from one level of society to another by acquiring wealth through trading with other participants. In this following discussion, we will address legality versus legitimacy, access to economic gain, class traders, and systemic change. Now, you notice, only one of these seminars was not specifically targeting whiteness. So let's go back to Emily Piper's little note. Taking the legitimacy of innovation in our institutions seriously, we are excited to try something new. The best way that we've found to support students, staff, and faculty of color in all their different experiences and backgrounds is to honor their experiences and respond to their requests for allyship and solidarity. Now, I'm totally on board with honoring different experiences and investigating difference and investigating different people's backgrounds and being open to that and being aware of that. I think that's the way that we actually become more empowered, every single one of us, by seeking out and communicating with other people of radical difference. Now, the other part, the part that I have a hard time with is responding to their requests for allyship and solidarity. I really need assurances that allyship and solidarity isn't me just giving over my volition and my rationality to the tide that's going on, which is what I see happens when allyship and solidarity are enforced or expected or become a moral imperative. I think there's something higher than allyship, which would be a critical stance towards your fellow human, where you engage with the independence and liberty of another person and the difference of that other person and respect that, but also respect your own self as somebody who is responsible for your own actions. All right. By switching the day of absence programming, we are physically moving our bodies so that people of color can be centered for one day on campus. And now, if you go back to my previous video, and the link's up either in one of these corners, what I read from, there's this large schedule, and there's more events than just the ones that I read, but a lot of them were centering white supremacy and centering dominant culture. And they're centering it in a negative way, but it was still centering. And it's again. It's centering, or it's bringing people together. It's making inclusiveness by means of exclusivity. It's forming bonds based out of againstness, based out of we are not that. We are against this. And I'm not saying that being against something is inherently wrong, but if that is the basis of the bounds of your community, then it will lead to violent reactionary behavior, targeting, their word, targeting specific groups.
I hear from fellow white people the sentiment, but we're all human, right? We're all people. And a mentor of mine, Norma Alicia Pino, who used to work here would often talk about truth versus reality, and the fact that it is true that all of us are human. Some of us may also identify as unicorns, but all of us are human. And that the reality is that some humans are treated differently because of systems of oppression. And so knowing that reality, how do we move forward? What do we do? So that's the big question that I ask myself all the time.
And on a final note, I want to plug Brett Weinstein's YouTube channel and his associated Patreon. If you guys want to understand what Brett has to say about something other than Evergreen, what he actually has to say about the evolutionary biology landscape, then I highly suggest you go there and check it out. He's got some very fascinating things to talk about, and the link is in the description.